Toronto is booming. In 2023, it became the fastest-growing city in North America, adding more people than any other metropolitan area. It outpaced even Dallas-Fort Worth by more than 70,000 residents. Newcomers arrived from every direction. Tech companies expanded. Finance districts surged. The city climbed toward global status. Yet, while the population surged upward, mobility stayed rooted in the past. Streets jammed before sunrise. Subways overflowed. Buses crawled through traffic. For a modern city racing ahead, Toronto struggled with a basic problem. It couldn't move itself. And nowhere was that failure more visible than on Eglinton Avenue, where a long-promised solution turned into a 14-year saga of delays, mistakes, and disbelief. Please take a moment to subscribe and like the video. It really helps the channel. Eglinton Avenue runs across the entire width of Toronto. It is the only continuous east-west route that links all 6 of the city's former boroughs. Everything funnels through it: drivers, buses, deliveries, commuters, and the pressure shows. Congestion grew so severe that visiting hockey teams sometimes walked to the arena because their bus couldn't get through traffic. Travel times doubled. Intersections locked up. Businesses felt the strain. What should have been Toronto's backbone became one of its greatest bottlenecks. For years, everyone agreed the corridor needed real transit. Something fast, something reliable, something that would finally stitch the city together. But getting to that point was anything but simple. The story stretches back decades. In 1994, Toronto actually started building a subway under Eglinton Crew's dug tunnels. Work advanced, and then the government changed. The entire line was canceled, and the unfinished tunnel was filled in for $40 million. Years of planning disappeared. A decade later, the city tried again with an ambitious plan called Transit City. It was approved, then shelved, revived, then replaced with yet another subway proposal. A new administration canceled that one too. Every shift in political leadership reset the project. Momentum evaporated. By the time Toronto finally settled on a direction, nearly 20 years had passed, and the corridor had only grown more congested. The design that emerged became the Eglinton Crosstown, Line 5, a 19-kilometer light rail line with 25 stations, stretching from Mount Dennis in the west to Kennedy in the east. 10 kilometers run underground through the city's busiest areas, while surface tracks cover the rest. And the choice of LRT instead of a full subway was a strategic compromise. Subways are faster and carry more passengers, but they cost far more and require deeper, more complex tunneling. LRTs can be built closer to the surface at a significantly lower price. For Toronto, under pressure to expand transit quickly while managing spiraling costs, the Crosstown promised rapid construction and a major upgrade to east-west travel, at least in theory. Construction launched with 4 enormous tunnel boring machines: Don, Humber, Dennis, and Leah. Each was 81 meters long and weighed more than 500 tons. They carved twin tunnels beneath Eglinton, completing their drives by 2016. It should have been a milestone, but removing the machines turned into its own forgotten chapter. Normally, extracting TBMs takes a few months. On Eglinton, it took 4 years. The machines had to be cut apart underground and hauled out piece by piece. The delay was one of the first signs that this project wasn't unfolding as planned. All of this happened against the backdrop of Toronto's long-running struggle with sprawl. For decades, huge regions of the city were limited to 1 home per lot under yellow belt zoning rules. Density stayed low. Development pushed outward. People moved farther and farther from job centers, which stretched commutes to impossible lengths. Only recently were these areas allowed to hold up to 4 units per lot. But the change came far too late to meaningfully shift growth patterns. Everyday travel became a maze of transfers and walking gaps. A simple trip from Mount Dennis to Wigmore Park can require a lengthy walk just to reach the subway, a north-south detour before heading east, and another long walk at the end. What should be a short crosstown movement becomes an exhausting journey. In a region shaped by distance, Line 5 was never optional. It was a lifeline. But even as demand for transit surged, Toronto faced a severe financial disadvantage. Municipalities across Canada own 60% of the country's core infrastructure, but receive only 10% of tax revenue. Toronto alone faces a $26 billion funding gap just to prevent its infrastructure from declining further. Councillor Gord Perks described the situation bluntly. He was terrified. Years of inconsistent funding left the city unable to build transit at the pace its population required. That long-term shortfall made the Crosstown even more urgent and placed enormous pressure on it to work. As the years passed, the project ran into wave after wave of issues. In 2021, crews discovered that certain sections of track were laid millimeters out of alignment. It sounds tiny, but on a rail line, millimeters matter. Deviations can cause increased wear or even derailments. Fixing the mistake took 2 months. Under the old 1950s Eglinton station, engineers uncovered defective caissons, deep concrete supports that had to be reinforced or removed. They also found water pipes embedded in concrete in the wrong location, blocking excavation and forcing redesigns mid-construction. By 2023, there were more than 260 unresolved issues across the project. Wiring problems, finishing problems, installation errors, the list kept growing. Above ground, the neighborhoods along the corridor endured years of noise, detours, dust, and lost business. Storefronts struggled through thin foot traffic. Residents navigated unpredictable lane closures and unending construction fencing. What was meant to be a few years of disruption stretched across a decade. Even when the physical line neared completion, another obstacle emerged: software. The Crosstown relies on a modern train control system that acts as the line's digital brain. It manages speed, spacing, doors, and safety across the entire route. But the system repeatedly failed testing. By mid-2024, it was already on its 7th version. Every ABRI update triggered new rounds of testing, and every failure pushed the opening date farther away. It showed how modern rail projects can be slowed not just by concrete, but by code. Meanwhile, costs kept climbing. The Crosstown was originally budgeted at $9 billion. By 2024, the price approached $13 billion. The pandemic added complications, but most of the major issues, from the engineering errors to the design surprises, were already baked in long before it began. For taxpayers, the line became a symbol of how difficult it had become to build major infrastructure in Canada's largest city. Now, after 14 years, the Crosstown is finally approaching its promised opening between Mount Dennis and Kennedy. The target is September, but even the TTC has raised concerns. Interim CEO Greg Percy has publicly questioned whether that date is realistic. Crews are stress testing the system daily. Every component is being pushed and retested. The western extension toward Renforth is still moving ahead, with tunneling complete and an opening planned for 2031. The Crosstown has taken 14 years, weathered political reversals, engineering failures, cost overruns, and citywide frustration. Toronto still doesn't know exactly when the line will open, but when it does, it has the potential to reshape movement across the region. It could shorten commutes, reduce car dependence, and finally give Toronto the east-west transit spine it has needed for generations. After everything the city has endured to get here, residents are ready for a line that delivers on its promise. This is Unthinkable Build. Thanks for watching.